Waging war on the Greek wildfires as thousands flee the flames. Fires still threaten to engulf parts of Rhodes, Evia and now Corfu as the first British families arrive home after holidays from hell.
A nightmare, absolute nightmare. There were people screaming, crying, people carrying little babies, little children.
Well, tonight here, the government advice on travelling to the stricken islands remains unchanged, but tour companies are now cancelling flights and holidays. We have the latest. Also tonight, a new Tory plan to tackle the housing shortage, but could the scheme be scuppered by the NIMBYs? How the Zoom booms led to a huge rise in cosmetic procedures, but exactly who's wielding that needle?
Attack them and there's Francis! The £1 million man puts his name on the score sheet.
Farewell to Trevor Francis, Britain's first £1 million footballer. And
you're in trouble when you get back.
I might be, but I hope not.
9 years after the care home breakout that made the headlines, The Great Escaper hits the silver screen.
I saw many similarities in him in my way of thinking, because I was from his absolute background, and I was a Cockney soldier.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Greece is tonight fighting wildfires on 3 separate tourist islands as thousands of Britons are being evacuated from Rhodes. The country's Prime Minister says they are at war with the fires and must remain on alert for days and weeks ahead. Evacuation flights started arriving in the UK today after many holidaymakers were forced to flee. But there is confusion tonight for many. Jet2 Holidays and Thomas Cook have both cancelled flights, but others haven't. Well, in just a moment, we will have the latest from Corfu, which is also battling its own wildfires. But first, here's our senior international correspondent, John Irvine, on the situation in Rhodes.
It was dangerously windy, so we stopped to film this smoking ember. Seconds later, flames were visible. Then the fire leapt to the left as air more than 40 degrees hot and fanned by a strong northwesterly had the effect of a hairdryer. Go. A few seconds later, the flames were leaping again across the island's main east coast highway. This had become a wildfire indeed. This is pretty commonplace on roads when the afternoon winds come. These fires have been burning for a week now. They're not going to put themselves out. And to be honest, the emergency services seem incapable of putting them out. Their priority was to try to save a beach resort directly in harm's way, but the fire crew found it tough going. Their hose wasn't cooperating and valuable time was wasted. This fire was a good example of why flights out of Rhodes International were among the most sought after in the world today. The situation in departures has improved since yesterday, with the airport and the airlines responding effectively to the crisis. Among those hoping to get home tonight, the Wood family from Harrogate have had a torrid time. James, Rosie and their 5 kids spent last night on camp beds at the airport. They had to spend Saturday night in a school where they felt safe until suddenly 3-year-old Orla let out a scream.
This one was... she got stung by a scorpion and she got bitten on her stomach. We left there to go to the hospital, obviously. They were worried about the venom with her being so small. She's fine. She won't take the medicine, which is why I'd like to get home and get her seen to properly.
This afternoon, some tourists who stayed on found themselves looking at a fire that broke out beside one of the few hotels still open on the east coast. It's not clear how it started, but it does illustrate how combustible this island is right now. The fire we referred to at the start of this report was eventually extinguished by half a dozen water bombings. The sheer effort required to put out this comparatively small wildfire shows why Saturday's inferno, more than 5 miles wide, could not be stopped. John Irvine, ITV News, Rhodes.